I'm Dana Shagru with CEAg World Greenhouse Produce, an innovative brand that engages with the rapidly expanding greenhouse produce industry through a variety of platforms. Our mission is to educate and connect greenhouse produce growers and industry allies to help them better understand and sustainably advance the global food industry. On this episode of CEAg Talks, I'll be speaking with Rob Eddy, Resource Efficiency Horticulturalist at Resource Innovation Insitute, about developing the best practices and controls and automation for CEA. Rob, welcome to CEAg Talks.
Thank you, Dana. Honored to be here. I've seen a lot of your shows, and I'm really excited to be able to share some of this information with you.
To begin, you are one of the main authors of the Best Practices Guide for Controls and Automation in CEA Facilities. Can you tell us more about that project?
Yes, this is part of my role as the educator of RAI, horticultural educator. I bring together working groups, and those working groups help me develop best practices guides. And so what that means, working groups means I bring in people from the growing community, people from equipment providers, people from academia, people from utilities, sometimes utilities that might be providing incentives for some of the equipment, and government officials. So we bring all those folks together and we have Zoom meetings, and I get a feel for that industry-informed content. So real boots on the ground, industry-informed content. I augment that by doing a literature search like you would if you're writing an academic paper. So I find out what all the current science is on this subject, and I put that together and write a best practices guide. So it reads like a magazine article, but I do put little footnotes on it in it that have the actual scientific studies at the bottom of the page in case you want to read up on the actual science. So it's kind of a nice blend.
Great. It sounds like it has some super helpful information for growers who are just starting out and getting into the business.
Yes, it does. I'm glad you asked that because there'll be another best practices guide coming out first quarter of 2025 on AI and advanced robotics. So you can think of this is the first half. This is controls and automation, which is, the kind of the history of how we got to where we are today. And the one I'll be doing next is kind of thinking forward to the next 10 years, kind of a primer on those technologies so that growers could prepare themselves for that. But the controls and automation one that we'll talk about today, you can be any size grower and get a lot of value out of this publication. It's free to download. It's sponsored by the USDA, so it's non-biased. We're not selling anything or trying. We don't pick winners of companies or techniques. We're just trying to provide good information, non-biased information to growers, no matter what level they are. So like one of the themes I would say for this controls and automation one is we at REI want growers to, as they can afford it, and as they're ready for it, to implement more and more advanced controls. Because to me, from my own experience, I know it is the best way to optimize your growth in your greenhouse and the best way to optimize your resources. And so we want growers to eventually integrate all the things they do in the greenhouse under one controller or as close to it as they can. That integration is an important theme because when you've got, it's great. I mean, I have nothing against, irrigation controllers and lighting controls. All those are great. But if you can find a way to integrate them all into one thing, then you can really start examining how your operation uses energy and water, and you can also optimize your growth. So by integrating lights and irrigation and your boilers and your other heating and cooling and ventilation fans and circulation fans and irrigation, CO2, and even tracking energy used by different pieces of equipment. Wow, I'm talking a lot because I just find this pretty exciting stuff. So that's why we did it. That was sort of the themes. I can define controls for you as I defined it if you want to, and I can also jump into what we found, some of the cool ways that most or many growers might not know about how to use controls to improve your resource efficiency.
Yeah, I think a good starting point would be to define what controls are and then why controls and automation is such an important topic for CEA growers.
Yeah, excellent. I'm glad you asked it because I'll just throw these stuff out and do need to define what I mean. By controllers, I mean the system that helps you maintain the optimum environment for your growth. So the sensors whether it be, the temperature, humidity, or light sensors. The actuators, things that make pieces of equipment come on. The controller itself, or what, the brains of the system. The interfaces that allow you to make setting adjustments and look at the graphs. Hopefully you'll have one that shows you graphs. And of course, those interfaces now have become really diverse. You can use a laptop, iPhone. You could have a dedicated computer in your office doing it all. And of course, data storage is part of that too, because you want to be able to store your data. Even if you don't think you're going to use it now, you will want that data when you get into the world of AI. You'll want to have some data stored away, because that might just help you train an AI system, but I get too far ahead of myself. So the controls, again, the importance is really, really having a command over what is happening in your environment.
Yeah, I know energy next to labor is one of the highest costs for growers. So it'd be great if you could dive into that a little bit more.
Yes, be happy to. So many cool ways that you can use this. And so I think your listeners will know some of them, and some of them might be brand new to them, but it's very cool. So of course, energy profiling, just keeping track of your energy use. When I was at Purdue University, it was 15 years before they even came in and put an energy meter on the greenhouse. And man, were they surprised. I mean, the facilities people came about 3 weeks later and say, what? You guys are the fourth largest draw of energy in this whole university campus. What are you doing? So I had to go out and show them high pressure sodium lighting and all this stuff. So it just was no information. Okay. So you want energy profiling. You could also do, and this is a fairly easy one, a great way to start, is what I'd call climate smart staging, making sure if you've got passive ways of cooling your greenhouse, for example, like opening vents, that comes first, and then motorized stuff comes later, because again, the motorized stuff needs electricity. Now the controllers can integrate your temperature. And what I mean is, most of the time, up until now, your greenhouse is turning things off and on to control temperature based on the temperature at that last reading. Well, and that's pretty aggressive. It's always turning things off and on. It's been found by scientists that actually it doesn't have to be that precise. The more important thing is the average temperature. So you don't have to be trying to chase that temperature by turning things off and on. You just need a way to track your 24-hour temperature. Okay. And so that ends up meaning you don't have to run stuff as much. It also means that if it gets too hot in the day, you can lower your temperature at night so that 24-hour temperature is exactly where you want it. So temperature integration, and that's what you can do with modern controllers. You can steer crops, how they grow, like vine crops, tomatoes and cucumbers, by water balance, which is how much the plants are transpiring and how much they're holding on to the water. That's a brand new technique. You can have energy curtains that are timed. They're aware of the sunlight and they're aware of the inside conditions, and they can be used, and their timing can be used to save energy. So they're only being closed to retain energy when needed, and not being opened up too soon in the morning. There's a certain way now that you can tell when's the time to open them up in the morning. VPD based control. So instead of having your temperature operate off of your greenhouse being operated off of temperature, it could be operated off of vapor pressure deficit. I'm going to jump into lighting and shading now. You can easily stagger your lights coming on so they all don't come on at one time, because it's not just how much energy you're consuming, but you also want to learn how to reduce your peak load, that moment when you're using the most energy, because the problem is your utility company might be determining your rates by that point there. And so in that they may charge you for the rate of your peak load for the next few months. That's your current rate. So you want to bring that down. For lighting, there's threshold control, where you have it, the lights are on, then they shut off when the sunlight gets to a certain level. Lights can be based on DLI, which your other guests have explained, but it's basically the accumulated sunlight over the day, like a rain gauge for light photons. so that you can turn it off at 4 in the afternoon if you've got enough light, so you could just not leave those lights running because you've had a sunny enough day. You can use them for dimming lighting, which is great because if you've got the sunlight is not full, but it's half sunlight, you really don't need. You may not need to have all of your lights 100% on. Those could be on 50% and saving you some money that way. You could also use your controls and this is very fancy stuff, but I love it. Eventually, and this will be happening more and more, that you can know what the rates are going to be the next day because your utility will provide that information. And then your computer will decide when to turn on lights based on the rates, not just the sunlight and the weather information, but what the rates of electricity is going to be that's going to drive that lighting. Wow. That huge savings of lighting there. And of course, shade curtains are part of lighting, and having the shades can operate using the outdoor conditions and indoor conditions.
Rob, those are all the questions that I really had for you about your controls and automation guide, but I really appreciate you taking the time to tell our viewers a little bit more about it and tips they can start using in their operations.
Well, thank you so much, Dana, for letting me talk about it. It's available for free. Go to the RII website and you'll be able to download it there. And thank you, Dana, for this opportunity for me to tell you about it.
Yeah, and I look forward to learning about your other guides in the future.
You bet. I'll see you soon.